Today we're talking about 3 books I generally can't stop thinking about and definitely deserve a reread. These books have changed something in me, and I know that might sound dramatic, but it's true. Before we dive in deep, hey everyone, I'm Michael and welcome back to the library. This is only my second video, so thanks for sticking around with me as I'm figuring all of this out. Let's get right into it. I have my notes on my phone, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So book 1 is Of an X by Greg Horwitz. It's a pretty good spy thriller book. So the book is about Evan Smoke, who used to be a government-trained assassin, but now he's grown a conscience. He's abandoned the program. He's basically gone rogue, and now he became a vigilante, and he does that through referral. So if he saves someone, he gives that person a number to call the Nowhere Man, and that person gives someone, that person gets saved. He could give it to another one. Basically, whoever's in trouble, they help out. And I actually love that system. You know, it's not like the Green Arrow running around jumping over roofs. It's more organic in a way. The book gets bigger and bigger and more intense as everything goes on, but it still manages to stay grounded through his interactions with his neighbors, you know, just mundane life stuff. Like at the start of the book, you have like this whole scene where he's in an elevator and he's just talking to the neighbors, and, you know, someone annoying, someone just trying to figure out how to go to a meeting and whatnot. But that's the limit of the spoilers I'm going to give. It might seem over the top, you know, like any other spy book, you know, Jack Reacher, Jack Ryan or whatnot, but it remains very, very grounded. It's been a while since I read the book, but what I do remember is that Evan Smoke, he's got impeccable planning. His level of preparedness is almost on Batman level, and some people might come at me in the comments for saying that, but he is truly prepared for like almost certain scenarios, and even when he always has like a way to break out of the situation. He's like spotting people all across like a building. That's diving into the realms of spoilers, but funny thing is Greg Horowitz has actually written material for Batman comics and other Batman media, so I guess that comparison isn't that crazy. I was hooked even before picking up the book because I was listening to a Jordan Peterson video. He was talking about his book 12 Rules for Life, which I've read in the past, and he mentioned how Greg Horowitz was inspired by his 12 rules to write some parts of this book. So this book is partially inspired by Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life because the main character, Evan Smoke, has sets of rules, commandments really. They're about, I think, 10 give or take, and they are basically the ethos that he's been taught by his mentor, John, in the past while he was being trained. I have 2 rules here, so I don't give away too much. Know your surroundings. So always be aware. Ethan's always aware. He's always like prepped. He knows who his neighbor is. He knows who is the person living opposite his building, all that sort of stuff. Another is always play offense. So he's always on the offensive. He's never on the defense. In that line of being inspired by John Peterson, I also discovered as well while researching for this video that he actually studied under Jordan Peterson in his undergrad. So you can see the influence is there. And I mean, it is Jordan Peterson. But something about this book that I can never forget is this one quote. And while reading this book, I read this book like years ago. So let's say 2-3 years ago. And this one quote has stayed with me. It's actually kind of made me, what's the term I'm looking for? It's actually guided my steps in a sort of way. Let me just read out the quote to you. The quote is from John to Evan while he was training. What are the best words in the English language? Next time. Next time means the world is open to you. Next time is possibility. Next time is freedom. And that quote struck me hard. You know, it really just, next time is possibility. You know, when you're doing things in your personal life and you keep failing and failing, that, like for myself, I try something, I'd fail, and then I want to give up. And that's when you truly fail. That's when failure is failure. I don't want this to sound like a self-help video, but that's when you truly fail, when you give up on something that you've tried. Just knowing that there's always going to be next time, it almost sets like a paradigm shift in your brain that there's a loop that you can go through. Even if you fail the next time, there's still next time. It's one of those quotes that really hits you, you know, kind of like Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight when Thomas Wayne and Alfred, there's this quote that they usually say, why do we fall down? So that we learn to pick ourselves back up. I'm just paraphrasing there, but that's the quote. And it's one of those quotes that, you know, it just makes sense. That quote has stuck with me for life. And this next book keeps calling back to me. It's giving me whole sentences to live by. And that book number 2, is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. How do you even summarize such a massive, massive book. It's a big book. It's 1,000 pages, give or take. In the word, it's an epic fantasy. It's set in the world of Rosha, which is a devastating setting. It's a land that's plagued by what they call high storms, which are awful hurricanes. Just imagine that, like, every few days, there's a hurricane that hits the land and it can't be predicted. Like, there's no Google weather or Apple weather app to tell you there's a hurricane coming in. It can never be predicted. And then the people, the animals, even the plants have to adapt to that terrifying setting. The story is very long, it's musical, it's flowing, and more importantly, it's complete. The world building is incredibly descriptive, and the magic system, if you know Brandon Sanderson, you know his magic systems are amazing. The magic system in The Way of Kings and the following books just it's bulletproof. There's no chink in the armor to break it. To me, at least, if you think of something, if you think of a way like to break the magic system, let me know. The characters as well, most of them feel like characters that can stand on their own. The setting of the world is very different from ours, but the characters still face things that we'd face in our world. And this is just something I wrote down to read out for you guys. You can feel the classism, you can feel the racism, the laziness, the betrayal for things perceived as what more than kingdoms or even the lives of people. While reading this book, you feel all of that. The greed, the need to be better and chasing that desperately. The pain. Oh, there's so much pain in this book, and Brandon Sanderson is very, very good at describing pain, describing depression, describing someone in their low state, and he's also so good at describing when they're elated, when they're elevated beyond the point that were in the past, and the constant procrastination to face things that bother us. You know, you could probably relate to that. I know I can relate to that. There's things that affect me that I'll get to that at another time. And Brandon Sanderson is very good at showing that through his characters. And then there's the feeling when the character actually decides to face that thing, when people decide to work together and train together to not just stay alive, but to thrive. The recognition of all that, that's why I love this book so much. The characters really sell it. There are a few characters I love. Most of the characters in Way of Kings, they feel complete, like they can stand on their own, and there's no one character that I hate the way Brandon Sanderson wrote them. I love the way all of them are written, but that doesn't mean there's characters I don't hate. I hate Amaram. He's self-righteous, and to me, he's just deceitful. You would find out why when you read the book. I also hate Nambalat. He's weak. Not just say he's just a weak person. But my favorite, Kaladin, is a character that really grows. You know, he's conflicted from when we first see him. He's in an awful situation, and he's just conflicted till, you know, he figures his stuff out. I have written down here his ability to take responsibility is amazing. His accountability as well, which kind of served as a double-edged sword for him at the start of the book, but eventually he learns how to harness it. He doesn't like being given authority over people, but he can't run from it much longer. You know, he's just that guy. He has this internal battle due to how he was raised. He was raised to be good at one thing, and later on he became good at another thing, and there's that clash between those two parts of him, and that's like reflects in his story. And eventually the whole goal is for him to try and come to terms with who he really is and see if he can get an amalgamation of both sides. And I really felt that. I love Zet. Zet is like the first, after the prelude, I believe, is one of the first people you'll be introduced to in the novel. I just love how relaxed he is, the way he thinks. But I hate his situation, though. His situation is quite sad. I love Dalina for his stoicism, and the man is just quotable. He's like quotable true Brandon Sanderson, or Brandon Sanderson is quotable true Dalina, one of the two. I love Shallan. I love Yasna. They're just incredible women. Shallan is putting everything on the line to figure something out, and Yasna, she's just smart. Like, you know, when you like watch a smart character, there's this like what they call a competence porn, and Yasna just gives me all of that. Sanderson's writing is so quotable, and if you read Way of Kings, you obviously know you obviously know what I'm talking about. There's this quote by Dalina, and I want you to really listen to this. I'm going to say it as slow as possible. A man's emotions are what define him, and control is the hallmark of true strength. To lack feeling is to be dead, but to act on every feeling is to be a child. It's just that thing that deep down you know instinctively, but you can't really articulate it properly. And you have to wait for someone to really put it into words for you to understand to be that direct for you to understand that, oh, okay, there's times I've done this and this, and I wish in those times I could be more in control of what I feel. And that's just one amazing quote. There's another one, of course, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination, which is just an amazing mantra to live by. It's very popular, especially Journey Before Destination. And this is one that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. This is one quote. So does one deserve to have evil done to her by consequence of putting herself where evil can reach her? That's just one I often think about. It's like, can a victim be blamed for being victimized because that victim was where he or she shouldn't have been? It's just one of those quotes that you really have to think about. And it's almost philosophical in a way. You could say that could be debated. Some people have their opinions. I know I certainly have mine. And this quote Brandon Sanderson actually just puts you in a chokehold and makes you think, is that right? Is evil deserving of her or him by being where evil could reach them? Just something to think about. I'd definitely read The Way of Kings again. In fact, I will, because for this video, to be honest, I actually had to watch a recap. I thought I remembered most of what I had read from The Way of Kings, which I also read, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. But after watching the recap, I realized that there's lots that I'm actually missing. That takes me into book 3. This is one that is very, very popular. Well, the writer is anyway, and his book series is anyway. It's Inferno by Dan Brown. I love Inferno. I do love all the Dan Brown books. He just has a way of writing, it is very formulaic, like High School Musical 1, 2, 3, it's all the same formula. What he does with that formula is what's really impressive. He has a way of describing architecture, describing art, creating puzzles. The plot follows Robert Landon. Robert Landon is the main character in the Robert Landon series, who wakes up in Florence, hospitalized, and doesn't have any memory of who he is. And then he and Sienna Brooks, who's a doctor as well, have to race across Europe while being hunted down by mysterious assassins. I mean, we're going from Florence to Venice to Istanbul. They have to stop what could be called a global catastrophe. In fact, it is a global catastrophe. You get like this amazing puzzles, this amazing codes, and you see how Robert Langdon and Sienna have to use like the places they're going to, the arts they're seeing, the sculptures, all of that information to try and solve these puzzles. The stakes were really, really high in this book. I think that's why it is my favorite. Like, the cost of failure will be very high. It's a blend of multiple themes, science, philosophy, poetry, history, art, crime, mystery, and religion as well. Religion is a very big part, and it's just a mixture of all the things that I'm really interested in one book. Well, not just in one book, in the entire series. And I love that. And I found it so interesting that people criticize Dan Brown and his writing. I mean, it's all subjective anyway, so everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's definitely a book that I feel like picking up again. Those are like the top 3 books that I'm definitely planning on reading. I have some honorable mentions. Little Brother by Cory Doctorow, pretty good one. You follow this teenager called Marcus in San Francisco that gets caught in the middle of It was just so random, just a very bad day, wrong time, wrong place, wrong situation. He gets caught up in the middle of a terrorist attack and suddenly the government is watching everything afterwards. And he has to fight back along with his friends using his skills of hacking and just pure stubbornness. It's about surveillance, freedom, and what happens when you refuse to give in. There's also The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Now, this is another book that the opinions about it is very mixed. People love it, and when they love it, they really, really love it. And when they hate it, they really, really hate it. And we follow Kvothe, who is telling his story to the storyteller in his bar. And his story is just very, very fantastical. Sad sometimes, you know. He was a street kid, a magician, a musician, basically a legend in the making. And the writing is just, it feels musical. It just flows. I guess that's why people hate it. Some people call him an unreliable narrator, but I'm like, it's the man telling his story and he can tell it whatever way he wants. All we have to do is sit down and enjoy, you know. But yeah, that's my opinion. I really love the book to the extent that I actually bought a copy for my brother in 2023. We also have Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So this was my first introduction to Brandon Sanderson. At first reading Mistborn was, I found it complicated to understand, but I DNF'd it and then I picked it back up, and then I got it the second time. We follow Vin and Kelsey along with a group of a ragtag group, and they're about to pull off the ultimate heist to defeat the immortal Dark Lord who already won and has been ruling for 1,000 years. They're trying to steal something in order to take him down. A very, very incredible book, you know. There's the whole I am the Messiah type of thing, the whole Jesus Christ thing, or what Lelouch did, but the opposite way. Very, very nice. Lelouch from Code Geass, by the way. And then we have the Percy Jackson books. They're just incredible. Like, Percy Jackson books made my younger years. It was quite a ride. If you love Greek and Roman myth, taken from a modern perspective, it's amazing. The first books, I haven't read the Roman side, but the first 5 books, from the Lightning Thief all the way down to, I forget what the last one's called, but it's just so amazing. Like, this is definitely one I want to reread as an adult, you know. Those are my honorable mentions. These are the 3 books I keep coming back to, and I'm sure we all have those books. So if you do have those, please let me know in the comments, and yeah, I'll take those as recommendations for stuff I have to add to my TBR. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider following the channel going forward. Thank you. Bye bye.